So what's the bigger one? Here's one for you. How would you like? I can let you can go find it for yourself. I don't have to give it to you. You can go find it when I tell you what it is. How would you like a well-researched list of hundreds of businesses to build that are going to be billion-dollar-a-year businesses? And you could go build one in artificial intelligence right now. How about that? I mean, is that a deal? I mean, somebody spent $5.6 million researching this list so that you don't have to research it for yourself. You don't have to go, I wonder if this is a good idea. When I go to raise venture capital for this, do you think they'll believe me? Or do you think they'll believe the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and the Brookings Institute has also done this? Bureau of Labor Statistics spent $5.6 million identifying which businesses, which jobs in the United States were most likely to be automated so that people could get educations and things that are not likely to be automated. Like, for instance, computer programming. Computer programming, in their estimate, has something like a 9% chance of being automated. Okay, as opposed to, here's one that I know is coming down the pike. There's this $19 billion a year business where people sort medical tools when they clean them and or reorganize them into medical trays. It doesn't pay very well, but it's $19 billion, and it's basically a classification problem of this is this kind of forcep, that is that kind of forcep. And these go into these trays. That's what it is classification. Okay? So artificial intelligence and classification, basically CNN-type neural networks and more advanced ones, and things like self-driving cars that are based on that. Okay, their estimate, if you look at this, is that somewhere between 25 and 46% of all jobs in the world will be replaced with artificial intelligence in the next 25 years. Now, if you happen to be in one of those jobs, that's kind of a sad thing. But let's flip the list upside down and let's look at the bottom of the list and say they spent millions of dollars identifying which businesses are going to be automated. I mean, can you imagine this? They did millions of research so that I can look at this list and say, I'm kind of interested in that one. I'm going to do that one. Now, are these going to be easy? No. Is it going to take a lot of work? Yeah. Do you know enough about it? Probably not. But let me give you a clue about not knowing about it. When I decided I wanted to build a product company, I looked around and I figured that database administrators, they get paid a lot, they're scarce, there's a market for somebody that can automate that. I had never been a database administrator. I'd worked with Oracle as a developer, so I knew something about it, but I'd never been a DBA. And I went out and bought all the 43 books that I could find on the subject, and I read every single one of them. I got a job as a DBA. Okay? And out of that, I actually got the people that I was working with to agree to let me use their system for test data. I built a business in 5 years and sold it. So, you don't know enough about it? Good. Go learn. Okay? That is not an excuse that will stand up with me. You want to, say, get into construction and build, economical houses for people because there's a huge demand for this in the world and it's something that needs to be done. Good. Learn about how housing construction is done and what you can do to automate it. It's hard. But it's on that list down there in the 96% category of likely to be automated. So, good. Go do it. Don't just sit around and participate. Okay? And let me give you a clue. If you do it and you build a business, you're likely to end up wealthy. If you do it and you don't end up in a business, you're likely to still end up wealthy because you've developed a great deal of expertise in a subject where you can charge a lot and you can do other things with that knowledge. So it's going to do you good either way. I do not believe that you come out behind for doing that sort of thing. So, what are the pieces that made the wealth? There are two of them. And let me erase this so we can talk about those two pieces. The pieces that made the wealth are two things. There's leverage and time. And leverage and time work together. It doesn't make much sense when you look at something and you say, by golly, I'm going to get 6% interest out of this, or 9% interest out of this. It's not that much year one. But that leverage and time works together. And over time, if you apply the two together, you create wealth. Okay? It's not instantaneous. It takes time. Okay? If I read 43 books, I didn't do it in an afternoon. I had to have a plan. I had to have a goal. I decided this is what I was going to do, and this is how it was going to be put together. And it took time. Okay? Now, I invested in the stock market. I started in college. Yes, it hurt when I took $2,000 of my college money and I invested it in the stock market in the first thing that I did. And I was wealthier than most college students. I came to college after having worked out in the oil fields as a welder, and consequently, I had money. Okay, I wasn't starting out broke. Okay? But that was a lot of money to me back then. But over time, by learning how to invest in the stock market and learning how stocks made money, not little graphs and this is a likely thing, and I did value investing. I invested in companies that were worth money, that made money. But over time, I turned that $2,000 into $86,000, 87 almost, and that was a big part of buying a boat 20 years later. So what did the boat really cost me? It cost me time and effort and knowledge and persistence in investing. Did I lose money in the stock market? Absolutely. Okay? If you invest in the stock market, you're going to have things that you put money into and you lose money. That's guaranteed. There is risk. But I think that most things that will make you money involve some amount of risk. I don't think you get to be risk-free and make money at the same time. But the two things that work together to make money are leverage and time. Now, leverage can be in the form of money. If you spend less than you make and you make your money make money, you'll eventually be rich. I've done this. Apartments. Okay? There are disadvantages to apartments. Believe me, when somebody has a plumbing problem in the middle of Super Bowl, it does not make you happy to suddenly drop what you're doing and go deal with the plumbing problem. That does not create happiness. But, yes, you do make money at it. If you plan ahead, if you look, is this a decent apartment? If you learn about real estate prices, where they're good, where they're not, figure out the real value of a piece of property, okay? Even an approximate real value, so that you're not getting ripped off when you buy a piece of property. Get it in a decent location. Before you buy it, go sit out for a whole night and see what the neighborhood is like at 2 a.m. in the morning. Oh, you mean that there's a bar down there and it's wild at 2 a.m. in the morning? This is not the location I want to buy. I want to buy something else where it's going to be quiet and a good place for people to live. Maintain it and make it a good place for people to live. There's a lot involved. I'm not saying that. But apartments are one thing, stocks. Okay, much less hassle, but much harder to figure out what it is you're going to invest in. So, leverage and time. Compounding of interest. Einstein said that the most powerful thing in the universe was compounding of interest. Okay, he thought it was more important than general relativity itself. So, leverage and time. Now, you're in the computer field and you have some unique opportunities. You have the ability to use technology as leverage. And this could be blockchain. It could be some other things. Artificial intelligence. You know, I think that there is a hardware revolution going on right now. Okay, that's not been true for a long time, but I think what Apple and Amazon Web Services and Google are doing with hardware is a revolution. Okay? I don't know how big a one, but I think it's big. Okay, it's important. But the technology can be your leverage. This can be, I'm going to approach a new market that has never had something like this and be able to provide them with some unique capability, something innovative, something new that they haven't had before that will change an entire industry. For instance, you might look at something like cows and say the supply chain for cows, and you'll need to know something about supply chain, is antiquated. And if we change the way the supply chain works using a blockchain, we can turn this ancient model for how they do things into a modern system, and we can make a lot of money in the process. So each one of these is your leverage. The second one is persistence. My goodness, you have to be persistent. You can't quit when things go wrong. You got to figure out, what am I going to do to fix it? And how am I going to make things compound? And when you get that first customer, you go, ugh, man, it took me this long to get the first customer. I'm never going to make it. Okay? And be optimistic enough to brush that off and say, I'm going to get the second one, and the third one, and the 10th one. And there's a lot of things that you're going to have to do, because let's face it, this is your comfort zone, and you're somewhere out here in your comfort zone. And over here is success. And if you want to get from here to there, you are going to have to get out of your comfort zone and build a bigger comfort zone. And this is called uncomfortable. Believe me, the first time I did calling of a customer on a phone, I needed a shower afterwards. I was uncomfortable. So, you do a lot of learning in between. But if you go from one of these places to over here, yeah, you do a lot of learning, but you learn some stuff and you get good at it. And after a while, yes, instead of being one of those people that was like bent out of shape about calling customers, eventually for one of my clients, their senior VP of sales quit. And I had been working with them on the technical side, and I said, I'll take over your sales. And they kind of looked at me funny. And I said, yeah, make me your interim senior VP of sales, and I will run it, and I will get these things sold and make it make money. And I did. And that didn't start out with me being any good at sales. I was a wallflower in college. So yes, I have been a VP of sales, and I have sold things, and I have been a senior person in marketing. I don't have a marketing degree, but I've done that too, and a lot of other things along the way. But if you do enough of these things, you get good at them. A lot of them. Okay, and that's required too. Or you could decide you're going to specialize in something. You know, one of those things you can specialize in, and they've got a lot of it going on here at the university, is cryptography. A specialist in that makes a lot of money. So there's not just one way of doing this, but in any case, it's going to take leverage and time, and you're going to have a plan for how you're going to get from where you are to where you want to be financially. And my general suggestion is that you make enough money that you don't have to worry about having a job. That if something goes wrong down at the plant, okay, and they lay off people, you go, okay. Guess I'll look for a job in a couple weeks. I'm just going to take a little vacation and kick back and, not pay much attention to it. I don't have to have it. My boss came in one day and they wanted me to, I was working on a contract for US West, and I was working pretty hard on this stuff, and they wanted me to move to Utah. I was a contractor, but they wanted me to move to Utah because that's where they were going to deploy the software for 3 to 6 months. And it was supposed to be voluntary. I didn't have to, hypothetically. But my boss looked at me, and coming out of the meeting, she said, okay, if you don't do this, you won't be able to pay for your mortgage. And I looked at her and I said, the difference between you and me is that I don't have a mortgage. And it was true. I bought my house, and it was an ugly thing. You could see the basement through the bathroom floor of the first floor. Okay? It had rotted through. The 2x6 or 2x10 holding up the floor. Okay? When I went down there, you could poke your finger right clear through it. That's how bad it was. But because it had some problems, guess what that meant? That meant that I could afford to just pay for it, and I went out and figured out how to fix it. And later when we sold it, it was all fixed, and it didn't have any signs that it had all of these problems. Okay? So we fixed it. And we turned it into a fair amount of money in the process. And I learned a lot. So yeah, leverage and time. Technology is the biggest lever out there today. Way massive. Okay, there are all sorts of opportunities for all sorts of things. Lots of them blockchain. We're going to run through a bunch of the different kinds of cases of, well, you could do this with a blockchain and this is what it would look like. Okay, with that, I want to get back to the real estate and actually just run a scenario for you. Now, one of those opportunities you have in this class is I actually have a professor from the business department, Dr. Corey Billington, sitting in. He's a Stanford graduate, and he teaches classes on supply chain and building businesses in the business college here at UW. He's a former VP from Hewlett-Packard, and he has a plan. I took his class last semester, and I learned lots. I highly recommend that if you can, go get into some of his classes and learn what you can out of him. Just squeeze every bit of information you can out of him, because he is really good and really knowledgeable. But I took his class, and one of the things he talked about was a plan that he has called Fortune to Glory, I believe. But you can ask him. Go talk to him. He has office hours. He wouldn't be shocked if somebody just randomly showed up. And, his plan is, here's how you go about, in a business, making yourself stand out so that you get promoted. And, I can look at that plan. I never did this. He did. But I can look at that plan and say, absolutely, if I had an employee like that, yeah, I'd promote him. So if you want to use your knowledge in computers to end up, instead of just peaking out at an average salary and getting that salary, you get cost of living adjustments over time for inflation, but just that average salary. If you want to use that kind of a plan and go from there to being in senior management, you can do that. And he has a plan that will work. Okay? So go learn what that is. Now, that can also lead to a lot of money. But I will point out that he has made the comment in classes that he made way more money in real estate than he did as a senior manager in HP. And it's $1 billion company. I think he said he had either $19 or $38 billion a year in his budget for purchasing for HP. It was a huge amount of money and thousands of people working for him.